found the whole scene fascinating because it was so odd. Late one night, I was heading back to Daggers on the District line. I managed to squeeze myself in at West Ham Underground station, intending to nap all the way home. I considered myself lucky to get a window seat, especially as the entire carriage was packed. Before I sat down, I checked the seat for puke, urine, some clue as to why no one else was using it. All seemed well, so I sat. Before resting my head, I did a quick surveillance of the carriage. It was packed, predominantly with men from an Indian background, dressed in dark and grey muted colours that matched the British weather. Everything looked fine, except for one lone Indian lady dressed in a burqa. She was seated in a single seat, boxed in by a young white woman crouching near her legs and a grubby young white man sitting in the double seat adjacent to mine. The burqa lady made no conversation and no eye contact with either of them. Maybe the three were connected, friends perhaps. But then again, a burqa with drunks? The scene did not fit. As the train doors closed, I sensed an unusual quiet. I scanned the faces in the carriage. No one looked uncomfortable, but they were all looking at the burqa lady. Somehow it annoyed me. It's so typical of people. They stand by and do nothing while someone suffers right in front of them. I couldn't go to sleep, not until I knew she was all right. I turned to look at her properly and noticed she wore a patterned headscarf with a matching bag. She had makeup on, not overly done, and her eyes were framed by large, round glasses in an 80s style. Every other part of her body was covered in black. I stared at the burqa lady. She stared back. I let my eyes slowly glide down to the white woman crouching beside her. She was young, with brunette hair that had a glossy shine, like the women in hair magazines. I couldn't see her face properly, but her dress sense was more contemporary than anyone else's in the carriage. She wore the brightest white jeans, unmarked by dirt. In the palm of each hand, she held a smartphone. She was totally immersed in whatever was on those screens. In that crouching position, she was unsteady. She rocked and jerked with the movement of the train, which made her drift into the burqa lady's personal space. On several occasions, she touched the burqa lady's leg, which, unlike me, never seemed to make the woman flinch. Then I moved my eyeline to the grubby white male leaning over the back of the chair, looking at the woman in white jeans. His hands were thick-set, his fingers short, and both hands were filthy. He was biting at invisible nails. His other arm cradled, like a baby, a large 3-litre bottle filled with a urine-coloured liquid. Then the smell of alcohol burnt the inside of my nose. Once I saw him cradling that yellow baby, I immediately hated it, and hated him even more. He had clearly boxed the burqa lady in, yet his body language toward her was dismissive. He was lost in his own thoughts. Once I had looked over the woman in the jeans and the drunk, I returned my gaze to the burqa lady. She simply looked back at me. I found no fear, no discomfort in her demeanour. She looked comfortable. Satisfied, I turned back and leaned my head against the cold window, ready for sleep to take me. Funny sort of friendship, I thought to myself. But then I questioned myself. Why can't they be friends? When did I become so racist and so judgmental? This can't be me. The woman in the white jeans came and sat beside me. Her back was to me, and she faced the grubby man. Must be drinking buddies, I thought. Great. That's all we need. More drunks. She started talking to him about the charity shelter. I didn't care. There was nothing cute or adorable about the yellow baby he was nursing. It was not born out of love, but out of misery and despair. That baby did not care for self-preservation. It only cared about the complete annihilation of the drinker's soul. I, too, was lost in thought and didn't realise the train had already pulled into East Ham Station. The doors opened and all of its Indian occupants left the train, including the burqa lady. I noticed that before she stepped off, she gave a beautiful smile to the woman in the white jeans, who shouted back, "Thanks for letting us use your phone." I did an imaginary double fist pump and mentally patted myself on the back. There was no way they could be friends. I wasn't being racist. You could tell from the body language alone that they weren't close. The carriage doors closed and the train set off for the next station. Now it was just me and the drinking buddies left. I kicked myself for not moving to another carriage. I wanted to change seats, but I was afraid it would cause trouble, and I hoped they would move instead. The woman in the white jeans watched him as he forced his yellow baby to become independent. "I'm getting off at Upney," she said aloud. "But I can get off at Barking if you like." He mumbled. "You what, darling?" "I said we can get off at Barking together. Do you want me to go with you? Get you somewhere to stay?" He didn't answer. She tapped the yellow baby. "They won't let you take that in with you. We have to leave it behind. Can you do that, darling?" He shook his head. "You what? You get the shakes?" "It's because you're dependent on it, that's why. It's called alcohol dependency. You need to stop drinking." He mumbled. "Once you stop drinking, then you can get yourself a job. A job, yeah. Earn yourself some money." "You what?" he mumbled. "Yeah, you've got to stop, darling. You got yourself a CV?" It went quiet. The rhythmic sound of the train took over. I felt at peace, but I couldn't sleep. I was mesmerised by the reflection in the window. I saw the homeless man remove several hoods from his head and brush down his greasy dark brown hair with his tubby, dirty hands. "Look at me hair," he slurred. "I know, you need a haircut. You'll never guess what. I'm a hairdresser. I work down Oxford Circus." "You must be good." "I am. I was headhunted. I knew the owners, you see. Used to work for them. They just phoned me up and offered me a job. Never happened to me before that. They still have to check the cuts, but yeah." There was a natural, comfortable silence. "I'll tell you what. I'll fix you up. You come down and I can give you a cut. There's a basin there for you to wash your hands." "Will you? Will you do that for me?" "Yeah. Come down tomorrow at 10 and I'll fix you up." For the first time during the journey, he smiled. The train pulled into Barking Station. The doors slid open. She looked at him, but he was staring at the floor, at the yellow baby. She said nothing. Nobody spoke. The warmth was slowly replaced by the cold wind, and I wrapped my arms tightly around my body and pressed my feet even closer to the heater under the seat. The tannoy came on, and the driver announced that we were being held at a red light and that it would be a while before we moved. I bit down hard on my bottom lip to stop myself from shouting at him. "Abort the yellow baby from your system. This is your chance. Take it." But neither of them spoke. "Why doesn't she do something? Say something to him. Force him to go." They sat in silence. Too late. The carriage doors closed and the train pulled off. I huffed and shook my head. It was only when the warmth returned to the carriage that she said, "How do I know that you're going to be all right?" He mumbled. "A silly question. Have you got a phone?" He mumbled. "I know," she said, disappointed. "It's a silly question. You're not on Facebook, are you?" He was. "'Ere, give me your name." "It's what, darling? ELL?" "No," she giggled. "I can't even understand you." She looked down at her smartphone. "How come you've got access to Facebook?" she asked. "I go down Victoria, see?" he slurred. "In the internet cafe. Go on Facebook there." "Look, there you are." Their heads bumped together as they looked at her phone. They laughed, and then laughed even harder at the homeless man's Facebook profile. "You can have access to my password," he said. "I don't want access to your password." "But you can have it." "I don't want it, silly." They carried on talking. They joked like they'd been friends for years. "Here, darling, this is my stop. Upney. Look at me. Here, look at me. Remember, I'll see you tomorrow." She gave him a kiss on his grubby cheek and left the train. As it pulled away, he lavishly blew her kisses. He caught me staring at him, and in a flash of panic, I turned to the window. In the reflection, I saw his shoulders slump even further, his head bowed. He put his feet on the seats. On one foot, he had a black pointed shoe, and on the other, a well-worn, tattered white trainer. He pulled the numerous hoodies back over his head, picked the yellow baby up from the floor, and once again tenderly cradled the babe in his arms. I wanted to rip it from his bosom and empty its belly onto the floor, but you can't do that to someone's baby, can you?